Lakeisha, Ben's working on getting our link posted on the website, but we are live on YouTube. And so just a small lag in getting that posted. So I'll let you know when that's live.
Not a problem.
Working on getting our link posted on the website, but we are live on YouTube. And so just a small
That's okay. We need to wait a couple more minutes. I know Nancy is on the way. I want to make sure we've got quorum. There we go. We've got a few more coming in. Hello, everyone. Lisa, Stephen Hill just sent me a message that he's having some issues. It says the host disabled him.
Yeah, I am working on that.
Okay.
I'm struggling to unmute a lot of people, so I'm not sure why that's happening. So just a moment.
Take your time.
Thanks. If anybody knows what to do, if unmute button doesn't work, you could message me. That would be awesome.
I think mine's working.
Short of Stephen calling in, maybe with his phone, doing the Zoom app, or just strictly calling in. That's the only other thing I can think of. That doesn't necessarily mean that it can help with your unmuting problem, but it would just technically mean he would be logged in twice.
My button works fine.
Nope, he's on his phone on Zoom. Maybe someone secretly was looking for a way to mute Stephen. I'll never tell.
Looks like he went out and is going to try to come back in. So hold on.
Good.
Finally.
Yay, we've got Nancy too.
My wild picture.
Hello.
Great. There we go. Fantastic. All right. Now that we have everyone, how's everyone doing?
Good.
It's been quite a week for a lot of us, I'm sure. Well, with no further ado, since it is 6:03, let's go ahead and call our meeting to order. May I have a motion to do so?
So move we call the meeting to order.
All right, that sounded like Nancy and Stephen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Fantastic. We are calling our meeting to order. Has everyone had a chance to look over minutes from the 21st? They were part of that agenda. If so, were there any questions or changes, suggestions, anything like that? Okay. Everything looked pretty much good to me. All right, in that case, may I have an order to approve the minutes for October 21st?
I move we approve the minutes from the 21st of October.
In a second.
I will second that.
All those in favor? Fantastic, motion carried. We have approved minutes from October 21st. And unless something has changed since last we spoke, Nancy and Lisa, in the past 7 minutes, has there been anyone who wanted to speak tonight?
Not that I've seen.
Fantastic. We have heard from some families via email, though. All right, let's go ahead and jump straight to the audit. Jay and Ben, you got some info to share with us?
All right, good evening. My name is Jay Sharp. I'm the partner in charge of the school's audit. Appreciate you having me on tonight. I'm going to talk about the audit here. I got a presentation. I'll share that. And after my presentation, I'll be glad to take any questions you have regarding the audit. It says host disabled screen sharing. If I could get that able, I'll be able to share my screen.
You should be good. Let me know.
All right, perfect. Thank you. All right, you should be able to see my presentation on the screen now. So we're presenting the audit for June 30th, 2001. Quick status update. Fieldwork has been completed. Most of this information, financial information, is gathered from Acadia, who you contract out with here in Raleigh. We did make a site visit down to the school several weeks ago, and we appreciate everybody getting the information we needed for that site visit. The financial statements have been prepared. They are currently in draft form. We're just waiting final approval. And once we get that, we'll be able to issue the audit for 2021. For anybody that's new to the board, all charter schools are required to be audited annually by general statute. The circumstances for the review process have changed this year. In the past, the local government commission was charged with approving and reviewing all charter school audits. There was a change in the law back in August that removed the LGC from that review process. And so they're no longer involved. It's going to quicken the audit process because it would take anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks for them to review and approve the audits. So now we don't have to go through that process, but you're still required to submit your audit to DPI on an annual basis. But it will shorten the cycle of the audit now moving forward. Also, once we've gotten the audit issued, we will start on the 990 tax return. Anybody that's not familiar with that, it's an informational tax return that the school is required because you are a not-for-profit to file on an annual basis. For most not-for-profits, you don't pay any taxes. That includes the school. You don't owe any taxes, but it's an informational tax return. As I've said in the past, sometimes this is more important than the audit because it is public information. Anybody can download any of your 990s from previous years. The numbers come from the audit themselves, but there's some additional information about the school with that 990. So, we will provide a draft once that's complete for the board to review and approve, but do pay close attention to that because it is public information. Now, with the delays with the IRS right now, once it's complete and filed with them, it will probably take up to a year now for that to become public. But they can look at any of your older 990s. They're all online currently. So that's kind of the status, a little bit of our roles and objectives for the auditor, our responsibilities when it comes with the audit. As I've said in the past, we don't just start crunching numbers. There's some things we do upfront that kind of dictates what our audit procedures are going to be on an annual basis. And most of that revolves around internal controls. We get an update of our understanding of internal controls with the school's financials. And we may test some of those controls. So for 2021, we tested controls over cash disbursements and over payroll. And so from our understanding of internal controls in place and from the results of our testing controls, we perform a risk assessment. It's a risk-based audit approach, the same audit approach we used last year. But what we're doing is assessing risk to each of the significant financial reporting areas of the school. For example, cash, receivables, expenses. We're going to audit all the significant reporting areas, but we're going to pay closer attention to the higher risk areas. And we're going to perform those audit procedures to obtain sufficient audit evidence to render an opinion on the financial statements. That's why you hire us, is to give an opinion on the financial statements. And we're going to talk about that opinion when we talk about the results here in a couple of slides. But it does concentrate on whether the financial statements are free from material misstatements. And that's a reasonable assurance when it comes to the opinion. So the results of the 2021 audit. Scope and timing of the audit were on track, no issues there. I'm happy to report we issued an audit with an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That is the best possible opinion you can receive. It should be the opinion the school strives for year in, year out. So a clean opinion on the financial statements. So good news there. The findings. So if during our audit, we come up with any either financial reporting areas of non-compliance or compliance issues, we're required to report those to you. There were no findings this year. No material weaknesses or significant deficiencies noted during our audit procedures. That goes with both the financial reporting part of the audit and the compliance part of the audit. So it's a two-part audit, really. We're looking at both the financial situation of the school, and we're also looking at some compliance requirements we're required to test from the state. And so it's a two-part audit, no findings with either part for 2021. So good news there. Audit adjustments. So during audit, we may note that some numbers might be wrong on an occasional basis, and we will correct those. I'm happy to report there were no adjustments this year. And that's very key to you as a board, because you're making critical decisions for the school throughout the year based on the numbers. And you should be comfortable with the numbers for the fact that we had no audit adjustments for the 2021 audit. In addition to the audit, we show a different separate letter. We kind of issue a separate letter called a communications letter. We're required to do that on an annual basis. There's 4 main talking points to that communications letter. First of all, were there any major accounting policy changes that would affect the notes to the financial statements? There were none for this year. One of the areas we look at closely are estimates. And so the school's main estimate involves depreciation or depreciable lives of your fixed assets. All those estimates appeared reasonable, no issues there. I'm happy to say we had no disagreements with management and no difficulties encountered whatsoever throughout the audit process. I know there was some turnover in some of the key positions. And we had some new people we're working with this year, but we have complete cooperation from Ben and everybody at the school, and we appreciate that. That allowed us to get the audit completed in a timely fashion before the deadline at the end of this month. So no difficulties encountered, complete cooperation and during the entire audit process, and we appreciate that. So to end up, we're going to talk about the numbers for 2021. And they should come to no surprise because, as I said, there was no audit adjustments. So first of all, some kind of summarization of the numbers for 2021 or some highlights. First of all, total support and revenue for the school was just below $4.3 million for the year. Your total operating expenses were just below $4.7 million. You did show a loss or in fund balance of about $411,000 for the year. A lot of that had to do with your capital outlay. You did do a project during the year. That cost ran about $600,000. So that's really the reason for the loss. And that's something that's obviously not something that's ongoing every year. But looking at that in a little bit more detail, these are your top 5 line items for both revenues and for expenses for the year. So for revenues, you received most of your money from the state of North Carolina, $2.7 million. And then that's followed by county funding. New Hanover County gave you just over $1 million for the year, and Brunswick County just over $200,000. And finally, you have federal funding of about $163,000, and then fine and forfeitures that you get from the counties about $37,000. Those 5 line items made up 99% of your total revenues. Now, if we look at expenses, your top line item, of course, is salaries and wages, as it always is, paying staff and teachers. And that was just below $2.4 million for the year. That's followed by employee benefits of around $800,000. And what I was just talking about a minute ago, capital outlay. This is the purchase of fixed assets, $623,000 for the year. Debt service, paying down your debt. This includes both principal and interest of just below $300,000, and then administrative services of about $200,000 for the year. Those 5 line items made up about 92% of your total expenditures for 2021. And finally, with the highlights, before we do some comparative analysis. So this is not a required statement, but it's something I like to point out, kind of statement of cash flows, where your cash is coming from and going. And this is a summarization. And so cash flows come in 3 categories: operating activities, investing activities, and financing activities. So for the year, you had cash flow from operating activities of positive $438,000. That's probably the most important number on a financial statement. Are you able to generate positive cash flows from your mission statement, educating children? And the answer for 2021 was yes. You had negative cash flows from investing activities of negative $623,000. That relates once again to the purchase of fixed assets and taking cash, investing it back into the school. So not necessarily a bad thing there. And finally, cash flows from financing activities of negative $120,000. That was paying off principal related to your debt. So overall, you did have a decrease in cash compared to last year of $300,000. But the majority of that was due to the capital outlay or the purchase of fixed assets during 2021. All right, some comparative analysis here. We're looking at revenues and expenses for the last 3 years. Red represents revenues, blue represents expenses. 2 out of the last 3 years, you've shown a profit. So as I said, 2021 was kind of an outlier because you did have a large capital outlay project going on. But one thing you see here is your revenues have gone up each of the last 3 years, starting back in 2019. So it shows that the school is financially healthy throughout the course of the history over the last few years. Fund balance. So fund balance measures the amount of assets over your liabilities, or really measures the overall profitability of the school from day one of operations through a certain time period. This graph starts back in 2018 and flows through 2021. Back in 2018, you were just below $1.6 million in fund balance. You've kind of gone up and down over the last few years. But at the end of 2021, you're just above $1.4 million in fund balance. Shows that the school is financially healthy at the end of June 30th, 2021. No issues there. Some of those short-term liquidity risk ratios we measure to continue to look at the short-term financial health of the school. First of all, looking at cash reserves. We're looking at your cash balances compared to your overall expenditures, and kind of calculating how long you could continue operating if you receive no more cash inflow. We generally recommend this to be 3 to 6 months. For the last 3 years, it's been within that range and no issues there. Back in 2019, 154 days. At the end of 2021, it was 122 days. Now, it did go down, but that's because you did use some cash in reserve to pay for that capital outlay project. But still within that 3 to 6 month range, healthy cash reserves in place for the school at the end of 2021. Next, we look at working capital. So working capital looks at your current assets versus your current liabilities. Do you have enough current assets in place to pay down your current obligations? We generally recommend this to be 3 to 1 or somewhere in that ratio. For 2021, it was 2.9 to 1. So just right near what we generally recommend. And kind of consistent with last year, and it has gone up tremendously compared to back in 2019. But these short-term liquidity risk ratios show that there's minimal short-term liquidity risk with the financial situation of the school. So that's a positive note there. The next couple of graphs are going to kind of break down your expenses or how you spent your money the last couple of years. So this shows 4 main categories. The blue is instructional services at 68%. That's a solid number for a charter school to have. For every dollar you spend, you're spending 68 cents toward instructional. 13% went toward capital outlay for 2021. That percentage is larger than usual because of that project that you had ongoing. 13% went to system-wide support services, and then 6% went toward debt service for 2021. If you look at last year, a little bit different. Instructional was about 41%. Your system-wide was 11%. Your capital outlay was only 8%. Your debt service was really high last year because you did refinance or took out a new loan and refinance some stuff. So that's kind of an odd year there. Nothing to be worried about. That happens whenever you do refinance debt. That's why the number is so large for debt service, but it's a one-time occurrence there. All right. With that, I'll be glad to take any questions you might have on the audit procedures, the results of the audit, or the numbers themselves. Just to kind of summarize, a clean audit opinion, no findings, and the school looks financially healthy at the end of June 30th, 2021. But with that, I'll be glad to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Jay. I have one quick question. There was an acronym in there that I didn't recognize immediately. It was LGC is not involved.
Yes, so that's the local government commission. They're in charge of reviewing all local government audits, towns, counties, school boards, and they used to be in charge of charter schools. And there was a general statute that was passed back in August that removed them from approving and reviewing charter school audits. They didn't have the staff or capabilities to really continue doing that, and they didn't want to do it. So instead of the audits going to the LGC and then to DPI, they just go straight to DPI now.
So that's ongoing. That's not just something for this year.
Yes, that will be going, unless they change the general statutes, which you never know, but it's ongoing. The LGC actually requested that general statute. So I don't see that changing in the future. It'll continue being, they're not involved in the process anymore.
Good to know. Any other questions from anyone? All right, well, thanks
I have
again.
one question. Sorry.
Oh,
I have
sure.
one question, and maybe I just missed it, but we had talked about kind of earmarking the sale of the property separate from the fund. Did we do that? Or does that not matter in this situation?
If I may on that,
Sure.
Amy, that has been done, but that would not impact this audit.
Okay.
So you'll see that next year in there, but it has been set aside as a contingency for future, just so we know not to, oops, I spent that.
Right.
So.
Sure. That's it. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And that sale is disclosed as a subsequent event in the notes, but it's not in part of the financial statements because it did take place after year end.
That makes sense. Any other questions? Well, thanks again very much for taking some time out this evening to break that down for us again. We appreciate that, Jay.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you. If any questions come up afterwards, Ben has my contact information. Feel free to reach out.
Thank you. Before we move on, we may have had someone who had either a technical issue on one end or another who had wanted to speak in beginning. So I wanted to see if there was a way to get a link over to them. I know that it was someone who had reached out to Tiffany and she may have some contact info. If that were possible, then I was just going to ask for there to be just a small change in the agenda to add that back in before we move on. Tiffany, do you have a contact, like an email maybe for the parent?
So somebody texted me saying somebody else was trying to speak and why aren't they getting an opportunity to? So I have a phone number for somebody else who has contact information.
Okay, so they didn't, we haven't heard directly from that parent. I was just wondering if it was a link that didn't work on the website or not.
Yeah, I don't know. She submitted a form but never got a response. So I don't know, like, is there any kind of feedback loop where someone knows, okay, yes, this is how you can share? Once they submit their information, it kind of goes to cyberspace, or do they get a confirmation? Here's how you log on to share for 2 minutes, or what is the process? Like, once I've seen the form, but once you send, are they supposed to get a link? Nancy, do you know that, or
So
Steve?
I have not gotten any forms. So if it was sent to me, I didn't receive one.
The form, I think, goes to someone at the school, because it's kind of like our catch-all, because some people were sending emails, but it might have been going to Dave Boucher because he was over it last year and it would get lost. So if it didn't go over to someone currently on the board, we want to make sure that someone got it so that we would know. So I don't know if something happened when they went through the website and it just didn't.
Because
come
the
through.
link is on the website,
was-
correct?
It was my understanding that the form is not a thing anymore, because that goes to me, and I don't check it because I'm not the secretary anymore. I was under the impression that the process was to email the office or email the board and ask, hey, let people know, hey, I want to speak.
I heard
So
most.
I didn't. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm at a kind of loud spot.
It's okay.
Yeah, I didn't think the form was a thing anymore. I was thinking they were supposed to email that request.
It's still
Okay.
on the website.
Yeah,
it
that's
probably
the
should- it probably
process
should
it
be sent
says.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we should come up with a new process then if we're not going to use that.
Yeah.
So she said it's okay. She doesn't need to speak tonight, but that's something that definitely before the next meeting, we should make sure that people have an opportunity to do.
Okay. Let's make that kind of one of our to-dos. And when I say I'll touch base with Danielle and powers that be after the Thanksgiving break, because I know that she's out sick right now. So deepest, sincerest apologies. We do our best to try and catch everyone, but mistakes happen. So in the meantime, we can go on. Our next agenda item is to vote on masks. I don't know if there is a recommendation from our ad hoc committee.
I'm on that committee. We, and Brent, you're on it too, right? We recommended to continue the masking for till the next vote, but probably until January.
Okay. And so far, all the feedback that's come through our emails, some of us have gotten some emails as a full board. That has also been some of the community sentiment too. I haven't heard anything otherwise, actually.
We want to make sure to give the kids, the 5 to 11 group, the opportunity to get fully vaccinated before we move on the mask mandate.
Makes
Yeah,
complete sense.
Yeah, I don't see any reason to do anything different. I mean, there's no pressure with New Hanover County. They made the same decision, so
Yep.
might as well. I would be in support of just moving on for another month.
All right, are we ready to vote, friends?
I think so.
Okay. As far as the mask mandate goes, all those in favor of continuing
We should
with
probably
that
have a
mask.
motion let's do a motion and a second first.
We need a motion. I'll move.
Candace,
Thank you.
Continue the mandate.
I almost heard pieces of that.
And I'll second them.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Fantastic, motion carried. We will continue on with the mask mandate for another month. Going on to the committees. I had a chance to review all of those attachments from the different committees. I don't know if everyone else has or had any questions about anything. I'll just start at the top, technology. L3. PPRC. I have a quick PPRC question. Are you, is the social media policy part of your next meeting item? I couldn't tell for sure if you've had a chance to meet on that.
We've kind of stalled because Mallory had been working with a company to help us, and I think that that is still ongoing, but we haven't really regrouped for it yet.
No problem. Thank you. What about development? Or finance? All right, we're keeping it simple tonight, especially since it's such a small group of us. If there's nothing else or anything anyone wants to make sure gets added to our next agenda.
Did you do the executive committee?
No, we the only thing under exec was really just a vote on mask. Otherwise, there really wasn't much of anything. We're purposely kept everything as brief as possible since we've got so many people out right now. Hopefully we'll do more of a catch up in December when we come together for Winter Festival, something fun. And we'll probably use a classroom indoors since the multi-purpose room will likely be used for the event, I'm thinking. But I'm sure there are going to be some details coming about that. So if nothing else fails, hopefully I'll see a lot of friendly faces at the festival, December the 4th? Do we have a time for that yet? A time for where the festival starts? Not yet. Okay. I want to make sure I didn't miss something there.
It's usually
All right.
10.
Okay. Good to know. All right. If there is nothing else, friends, we are calling it a night rather early this time around. If I don't see anyone before the break, have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. Enjoy your break. Be safe. Have fun. Enjoy. And I think I am ready for a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
I love it when it's quick.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. See ya.
Bye.